Well, I know AJ has an interesting or well, a really thoughtful Tinker Talks planned out for everyone. So I'll turn it over to him to kick things off. So we got a good amount of people in here already. So I'm excited for this. Let's get it going.
I was about to say we have a nice um, influx of people already at the start. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today's episode 4 of Tinker Talks with Dakota, founder of InvArch, and we are very happy to host Imbue Network's founder Sam. Very nice to have you here, sir. So we
Hey,
have
pleasure.
Thank you. So we have the space all filled, and usually we start off with giving a rundown of the Tinker Talks episodes. So we'll start off with some introductions from Sam and Dakota. Next, we'll go through the main question series where questions will be asked of Sam and Dakota. And from there, we will open up the floor to all of you and our audience today so that you can ask your questions to either Sam or Dakota or both of them. And to end off the Twitter space, we'll have Sam and Dakota give their final statements as a send off to our lovely audience here today. How does that sound?
Sounds
Sounds
fantastic.
awesome.
It's almost in unison. That's wonderful. Alrighty, so let's begin with introductions from Sam and Dakota.
I'll say, I'll go ahead and lead this one off. So as many of you guys know, Dakota Barnett, founder of InvArch, Sama enthusiast through and through. No, I always feel kind of weird, like giving the rundown on who I am. I feel like I'm not too special. I'm more so excited about what we're building. But I guess like what kind of got me into this space, I'll say, is so for many years, for now it's getting closer to 6, more so than 5. But for 5 years, had this idea, an idea based around helping connect individuals who have great ideas with individuals who have skills and or resources to bring those ideas to life, and ultimately just with this really big drive to empower people. There's tons of great ideas. There's so much potential out in the world, but there is obviously a huge gap in the connection of those resources, and then in trying to solve for that gap. Trust is a really big factor. And a lot of the problems that I wanted to tackle, come to find out as I'm diving through and trying to find solutions, I come across blockchain, I come across Polkadot, I come across the awesome power of Substrate. And with all this, that was beautiful. It was just like all in a moment, all of the missing pieces just kind of fell into place and the picture became very clear. And ever since then, I've been very driven, very motivated to build out InvArch, ultimately, which has evolved a lot since then. What got me into the space at first was a drive to produce, in one sense, what would have been ultimately an app, and still would love to see that. But what we've dove into was, again, there was a lot of underlying lower level issues and problems that needed to be provided for and solved, such as the ontology of assets, so the structuring of digital assets and the relationship between them, management, multi-party ownership solutions, and then obviously unlocking the monetization potential, not just from assets, but unlocking that potential so that it can also be shared by all participants in that process. And these are permissionless, trustless, like core underlying features that that we really believe again, like at the lowest level, are integral to what we see as like the new internet, to Web3, which is being, in my honest opinion, built out ultimately through Polkadot. But with all this, providing the InvArch network, which is evolved into these protocols, and then on top of it, and in connection with and relation with a bunch of the other amazing protocols, one of which was like Imbue, I think is really fantastic. Really excited for people to learn about what they're building because it is right in line with so many of my passions. But yeah, on top of InvArch and other protocols, then we can see some really awesome applications and solutions applications that solve the whole reason I got into this space a long time ago, and then also just a whole bunch of new and exciting possibilities that we'll see come about. But yeah, that's me. That's why I'm here in the space. Kind of what we're building a bit. But I'll pass it over to Sam. Like I said, that's what we're doing. But I'm really excited for everyone to learn about Sam and Imbue because I don't know, just what they're building it's a really good thing.
Thank you, Dakota. I was just smiling there because virtually everything you said resonates with me, resonates with Imbue. So yeah, so a quick intro on me. I'm Sam Elamin. I'm the founder of Imbue Network. Been writing code for about close to 20 years now. Close, well, 17 if I'm honest. Um, yeah, so I've been an engineer for a very long time, building distributed systems, but I was attracted to Web3, I think early in 2017, when I realized that it gives people opportunities that just don't exist where they are, right? Really, the fundamental why. I always talk about whys because whys are what leads to adoption. The fundamental why for me on Web3 was because now the global financial system, wherever you are, right, discriminates against you based on where you're from. Right, and it's a lottery. You have no say on where you're born or what citizenship you hold. It's just you're lucky to be born where you are. But the lottery of where you're born determines your opportunities to succeed, and that's deeply unfair. Um, so to give a more concrete example, someone who's born in the West, in Western Europe or the States, will have access to far more opportunities than someone who's born in Africa or Latin America or Southeast Asia. And that's just that's just the way it is. And that to me was deeply unfair. And when it comes to Web3, you're now giving people access to opportunities as long as they have internet that just don't exist with the global financial system. So when I talk to my family, when I talk to my friends, when I talk to like virtually anyone, it sounds like I'm in a cult, but that's that's what it's like when I'm talking to people who are not interested in Web3. Right? They ask why. What are you going to do with Bitcoin or Ethereum? Even after weeks and months of conversation explaining what blockchain is, they're like, okay, what are you going to do with it? So, like when we started Imbue, we wanted to categorically answer that question of why blockchain, but more importantly, we felt deeply that the space, the way things were going in the space, was just unsustainable. So many projects launching with, with a token that has no functionality at all, right? We faced this in the Polkadot ecosystem. Projects saying they're building on Polkadot, but then they launch an Ethereum token. We saw it with so many projects on Ethereum that will rug pull in one way or not, or launch something and rarely deliver. There were so many over promises. And what the blockchain is great at is verifiable, trustless, and ensuring something has happened. Right? You don't have to wait for a central authority to say something has happened. So we're like, okay, well, let's build on that. Let's utilize the most unique aspect of blockchain to build functionality that people can relate to. So, for example, there are people who don't have access to these opportunities can say, you know what, I have an idea, I have a project that I want to do, I have all the resources I need to succeed, except funding, right? So, for example, a farmer in Africa could be like, look, I have the farm, I have the land, I have the weather, but I can't go to the bank to actually get a loan to farm, right? But Web3 has access to opportunities that can get you that loan, right? Beyond just DeFi. And that's really something I wanted to highlight. The beauty of Polkadot is it moves beyond just DeFi, right? People talk about blockchain, they automatically think NFTs or DeFi, but it goes way beyond that. And that's really the beauty of Polkadot. It allows you to look at problems and problem statements and requirements and try and fix solutions for those problems using blockchain and using decentralized and trustless environments to help people. And that's the only way we answer the whys, and that's the answer and get the adoption. We have to answer the why should I use this, right? And DeFi is great, but it has not been enough to onboard the next wave of users, right? And that's why I'm here. Sorry, it's a long introduction, but like I said, the ethos and the goals resonate. Like InvArch and Imbue and so many other blockchains on Polkadot or layer ones or parachains, whatever you want to call them, they're looking beyond just DeFi, and that's why I love Polkadot.
Wow, amazing. Thank you both, Dakota and Sam, for those astounding introductions. And Sam, all respect to our past guests, but I don't think I've ever heard a more powerful introduction. So amazing, amazing. I love it. Thank you. I think it's a great time to move on to the main question series of Tinker Talks. So I think the best way to kick things off the main question series is to start with Sam. So I know you had somewhat gone over how the Imbue Network started in a way, but could you please go into what Imbue Network is about more, and how can someone get started on Imbue today?
Great, yeah, that's a great question. So I think at its core, what Imbue is, it's milestone-based democracy, right? Milestone-based vesting through democracy. So, uh, one of the biggest problems we saw in the ecosystem was launchpads. You know, people launch something and then run away or rarely deliver, right? And projects fail all the time. People coming into this space were not aware of that, but startups fail all the time. And what we wanted to do is that how can we use the blockchain to protect people? So the way Imbue works is, you know, you define a project, you define how much you necessarily want for this project, but what's core is you have to define milestones. You know, you can say, hey, I'm going to launch this website and I'm going to, you know, mint NFTs, or I'm going to build a blog, like write a blog. It doesn't matter what you're doing. What you just have to define is milestones or goals that you're going to achieve, right? And those are the goals that are then saved on the blockchain. You know, you want to do goal one, you have 10%. You want to do, you know, goal two, you want 40%. So the website, as an example, I can be like, hey, I want to, you know, my first milestone is going to be I'm going to hire a team and I want 20% on that. And then we're going to build a website explaining things, and that'll be 30%. Oh, and then I'm going to launch a product and I want 40%. So you define percentages, and that goes against that project. And then when people fund that idea because they like it, you know, their funds are essentially locked in escrow on the blockchain, fully transparent, and then they vote on progress. So, you know, when I build that website, I submit my milestone, and then people can say, okay, yeah, we see the website, we're happy with it, we're going to vote yes. That's where democracy comes in. When they vote yes, they, when the majority, and the majority here is defined as 75%, when the majority vote yes, you know, the milestone gets approved, and then the person who launched the project can withdraw the funds. But when they vote no, they can get feedback as to why no, right? Is this closer to what was delivered or not? And that feedback is extremely important for builders, right? So that way we reduce the risk, but by reducing the risk, you also are able to ask for more, right? Because people can can ask for slightly more than they would if they're going towards VCs or going towards traditional funding, because you're saying, well, I'm not getting access to everything. I'm going to only getting access when I do things, right? And the final bit I'll say is this engine, this democracy based vesting or milestone based vesting, can apply to other things. So you could apply to all these companies, all these brands. There's so much interest. There's just so much interest from Web2 companies, governmental bodies, entities, brands, even individuals who want to explore Web3, but they just don't know where to start. Like they don't know. And traditionally, when you don't know, you go to consultancies, you go to KPMG, you go to Deloitte, you go to Accenture, you know, EY, all these big consultancies, and you go through a tremendous and extremely expensive, both time expensive and money expensive process called tendering, where you know, define a brief and you get them to say, yeah, we can do it, or no, we can't. And speaking as a consultant, I can tell you at the end of this painful process, there's no guarantee you're going to get what you want. There's no guarantee you're going to get anything resembling what you want on time. But with what we've built, these people can then, these same entities can submit a brief and say, here's our budget, these are the skill sets we want. And then everyone in the network, you know, who's qualified, we're going to have this fellowship to qualify people, but you get access to qualified and vetted people that can apply for work and say, hey, I can build this out for you. You want a video? I've done loads of videos. Here's my YouTube. Or you want to build something on the front end? Here's my LinkedIn. Here's my past projects. Everything verifiable on chain, and you define your proposal, you define your milestones, and you get access to work. So you're able to monetize your talents in a way that just isn't accessible to you wherever you are.
So I just want to say, like, I absolutely love this. And my bad, I wanted to say something after your initial intro, but for some reason, the building I'm in is doing a really loud fire alarm test, so I had to book it down a bunch of steps real quick before before it's my turn to talk again. But no, I just wanted to really before I move forward, and I am bringing it back on what you said before, just because I really loved it. But when you were talking about like your whys and things in the space, um, some of the things, like there's three distinct things that really stuck out to me, and the first one was where you're born, basically like it's random, to a good extent.
Did Dakota rug or did I rug?
Might be
I'm still here. I think everyone else is still here.
it might be me. Can you hear me?
We can now, yeah.
Okay, here. Let me get off the. I'll stay on the Wi-Fi. Okay, my bad. So one of the big things that got me into the space in the first place was, or not in this space necessarily, but just down this path of what became InvArch, is my understanding, of where you're born has a really big impact on the opportunities that are available to you. And granted, like as I grew older, I realized that that perspective is a big thing. So like in the United States, so for example, I grew up by U.S. standards, very poor. But when you zoom out, which is what influenced me another thing, like I'm looking at my friends, I'm looking at all these people, I've shared experiences, shared dynamics in their life, and but as I grew older, then I realized, as I get a more mature like view on the world of the cultural diversity, is I have a team that's internationally like based and hired. I realized that lack of access to opportunity is extreme in some areas, um, and ironically, in the same sense, or in those same places, those individuals, or a lot of individuals from those places, some of the hardest working individuals that you will ever come across in your life. All they need, all they want, is a chance, is an opportunity, and it comes back to, in a full circle, to there's people who have immense desire, immense talents, immense ideas, and what they really need more than anything is a bridge. They need channels. They need some type of solution or solutions that give them access to a world of those opportunities. And the internet is a big key, but with blockchain and with Web3, where we're really able to actually provide those solutions. And the other thing, you talking about like what Web3 is and our ability to like bring actual value. Like DeFi is this all started with finance and decentralized finance. I mean, that's extraordinarily broad. If you like, when someone, seen some people stretch it to where like DeFi is basically everything, and one can make that argument. But the thing about DeFi is that most of the services are zero sum. It's money goes in, money comes out, but money is not created, and not necessarily, not in most cases. And I think it's funny, because looking back on patterns, you see, I guess like with Web 2 and the initial surge of internet in the .com era, is what happens is like people exploit things to make money, but in the same sense, it's people look for the easiest, fastest ways to move capital, and then that's usually what gets exploited. And then after that bust, which I think we've seen a few of, but after that, what really then solidified the significance of the internet and its value, and really, I mean, so the biggest tech names in the space right now, is the fact that what they ended up building and the products that ended up defining the internet were those that allowed people, it didn't take and then move value. It gave people a way to generate value for themselves. They provided resources and tools that allowed people to either to generate wealth, to communicate faster, to work together, to collaborate, to build revenue. And they created resources and tools that allowed people to have significantly better lives than what was otherwise available. And there's this dependency on those things, and they're trusted right now, a lot of those things. But the thing is, that dependency on them, because they allow people to generate value. That's really what we ought to be building for, in my view. And this is one of the really big reasons why, like, Imbue. I mean, obviously, InvArch, I love what we're building and all that jazz, but you have a really pure focus and solid understanding of what you want to bring and how you want to help people. And I just really hope that more and more people learn about this because, I mean, I don't know. It almost sounds exactly like the idea that I initially had. So when I hear about it, I'm just like, I already believe in it. I feel like I've been believing in what it is that you're building for the past 5 years of my life, you know?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dakota. And ironically, I think all the engineers that get into Web3, specifically engineers, because that's where most of my social circle is, right? They fall into two camps. One who will say, it's all scams and all pyramid schemes, and there's nothing behind the tech. And it's because they look at what's existing on GitHub, and they look at the fact that all the best practices that have been well defined in the industry just doesn't exist in the Web3 space, especially in the Ethereum ecosystem. You get these script kiddies that want to push out a Solidity contract, and then that's it, they're done. And you realize that, wait, what about tests? What about your immutable infrastructure, dashboards, all the things that make even the smallest startup succeed, and doesn't exist. So they're like, no, we're not interested. And then they're the other camp where they're like, we are not going to be able to make any meaningful change in the current global financial system, but with Web3, we're going to be able to impact people's lives far more than we would if we just continue on. So, for the audience, you have to understand that traditionally software engineers are it's a relatively well paid job, right? They have financial security. So the ones that are taking a massive risk to jump into this space, it's because of how firmly they believe in how much they can improve in people's lives, and that is what drives them, not number go up or moon boys, right? And that's what resonates with me. What you said, Dakota, about being a value producer rather than a value extractor. It isn't a zero sum game when you're focusing on empowering other individuals, right? Instead of just saying, you can do this or take a loan out of this particular product, and then you can get a yield of X%. If you take that all out, how does it empower people? And if the empowerment is literally just you number go up, then you have to ask yourself then who's losing? Because like you said, it's a zero sum game when it comes to just literally you know uh, DeFi protocols that are just meant to borrow or lend. But when you're talking about empowering people, saying, look, what are your talents, what opportunities do you require to actually improve in your life, then it isn't. It's about giving value and answering the whys for those people, and that's really how we benefit. And I think that is what stands Polkadot apart from any other chain. All right, if you forget about interoperability, if you forget about XCM, if you take that all away and you talk about software engineering, building practices, and you look at what are the best practices and what is the best tech, not from functionality, but from maintainability, which is crucial. I would say it's arguably more crucial than hey, this thing has better features. Something you can maintain and something you can continue to maintain in the long run is far more of value than something that can produce millions of transactions a second. It's like how many other devs can join in and add value to this so others can be empowered. And I think that's where Polkadot stands unique. Yes, documentation, we're not even going to touch that. But when it comes to ensuring best practices, every commit that is pushed into the Polkadot ecosystem, right? I'm talking about core, is tested rigorously. I know this because I've been spending 15 days now, closer to 20 days, trying to push a change to allow parachains to warp sync. Right, it's really cool that relay chain collators can warp sync and you can sync quickly, but parachains are slightly slower. And I'm saying, well, let's do the same for parachains. And the amount of due diligence that is done for that small change is enormous. So that's what gives me confidence in Polkadot as an ecosystem going forward.
Beautiful. I'll be honest, I had a feeling that this Tinker Talks is going to be super interesting, but man, it's been really, really interesting, and we're only on the first question. So, for Dakota, comparing both projects, in your opinion, Could you help our audience know the differences between the two and what Tinkernet brings to the Kusama ecosystem?
Yeah, of course. So, well, first and foremost, because there's OSIF, which I think there's synergy with Imbue, but I'll get to that in a second. The main thing about Internet and InvArch is, well, especially with our dual token economy, which may or may not talk about later, is first and foremost with the InvArch protocol is providing, like I said, so like asset ontology. So with primitives using NFTs, the ability to define the structures of whatever. I mean, the main examples that we use here are we usually use repositories, DAOs, so governance structures, DAO like the actual bodies of an organization, as well as just the organization of content itself. So if someone were to create something, all the different ways that they would organize their files and all their folders, able to do the same thing, emulate all of that using InvArch. So it's like providing the framework for those web developers out there who know the old analogy. It's very similar to kind of like HTML in a sense, where it's giving you the frame for your house. But then there is later things that we're going to be building. Apart from their Saturn, which provides some really powerful ownership solutions. Then over multi-party ownership, multi-sig powered ownership solutions over those assets, or for multi-sig functionality throughout those organizations, providing that. But the cool thing is then using XCM and something else that we'll be rolling out in the future called the INV engine, allowing smart contracts and smart licenses on our chain, but smart contracts on any chain, any parachain that's connected on the relay that we have open channel with, to be able to, for their developers, to deploy smart contracts on their chain that interacts with the pallets and assets on our chains without the need for using XCM, using trustless XCM transacts, without the need in some cases for even the bridging of assets, just the ability for trustless logic to be executed on one chain and then it updates the state of an asset on another chain. So basically, in that old analogy, that's kind of like your JavaScript where you're providing all the wiring and electricity. And as far as the CSS, I skipped that, but that's not really part of this talk. Um, but InvArch, like I said, so really focuses on what it is. So the definition of organizations, of content, and the ownership structures over them. And then we'll also be providing monetization tools for the the content, shared split royalties, and then also monetization tools amongst DAOs for like this kind of modular DAO system. That's the main focus there. Now with Tinkernet, and this is exclusive to Tinkernet. This won't be a feature on InvArch, but on Tinkernet we do have the OSIF protocol, which stands for On-Chain Innovation Funding. Now, to be quite frank, to be quite honest, so the difference between OSIF and Imbue is that Imbue is a lot more. It's what I wish, honestly. It deserves its own chain, which is why it's OSIF is not Imbue, because there's a bell going off. Imbue is very thorough. It's, in my opinion, it's what it should be regarding the a solution that provides actual like thorough milestone funding towards projects. And what I mean by there is to provide funding that results in something fruitful, something, actual results. So I think that Imbue is by all means what or how on-chain innovation funding, so community governed funding models ought to be run, in my opinion. Now, OSIF, though, I will say, its main focus, though, isn't necessarily to provide um, the full feature that Imbue provides. Whereas with OSIF, it's really, I guess I would say it's a bit more simpler. Um, it is meant to be a bit more chaotic, a bit more, I guess you could say, streamlined. Now, it is community controlled all the same, and there will be at first certain thresholds to prevent essentially from spam um, on the protocol. However, the main difference is, I'll say, on one sense, it's powered through staking, which I like to think is really cool. Provides a cool or an easy um, avenue for people to like act, to participate, to access the process. Individuals token holders can stake their Tinker towards an INV set or an INV core, as we're calling them now. So towards NFTs on our chain, these kind of NFTs as DAOs, really. Or an individual can stake their NFTs, their INV4 assets, in which case then they can get funding based off of the support that they receive. So there's the difference there. But I will say the risk, though, is there is not thorough like vetting or milestone process. So the big thing is OSIF is good for kickstarting. And I really mean that. It's good for kickstarting. It's good for getting people that little bit of help they need to get going. However, if someone were to ask, okay, where do I go from here? In my opinion, I think then you should probably go to a solution like Imbue, where you can then get more proper funding, and then under, of course, under the right scrutiny that the funding you're asking for deserves.
Thank you, Dakota. Now, going back to Sam for the second question here, by deep diving into your project more, there's rather a specific focus on governance. Could you break down what governance is like or will be like on Imbue specifically, and how does Imbue use on-chain governance to achieve its goals?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have a really good way of linking both questions together. So the way it currently works is we've got a council made up of 4 team members and core team members and 3 from the community that, they are called heroes to ensure that accountability. From the very start, we wanted to focus on accountability. So the heroes are meant to hold the team themselves accountable. Hence, we gave them council slots. So they're the ones that are vetting projects initially. That will then move over to governance. So the committee themselves then decide, which projects should or shouldn't get funded. Right? We only put in the council initially as a form of protection, so we don't get scams coming through. Right? Once we have a way of visualizing, I think that's where we're weakest in the Polkadot ecosystem, visualizing governance. And I think for those of you who are interested, if you look at the Polkadot and Kusama Treasury, Ordem are a team of really, really good team that are focusing on visualizing all the proposals that's happening on governance to just allow you to actually see, what's happening on chain, right? Because right now, I would say Kusama Assembly is not the best at being the most intuitive. So visualizing what's happening on chain is really crucial. Once you're able to see what's happening, you're able to add your voice to it. What if we have notifications? And that's where something like Oak comes in, right? Oak Network. They're doing things around automation and notification of things that are happening on chain. Imagine a world where, I'm just painting a picture here, but imagine a world where someone comes in and say, look, I've got this, I've got an idea, I've got an MVP, I'm going to get funded through Imbue, and what I'm going to do is then provide the rights on InvArch, right? And then when notifications happen, that goes directly to Oak and go speak to for identities around the my project. I'm going to go towards Kilt. That becomes a much powerful demonstration of interoperability beyond just token transfers. So that's really how I wanted to link all these networks together, demonstrating the Gavin Wood's original view of XCM. There's a good post about it on the forum about how XCM is meant to work. It's about building out these on-chain industries, right? And how they work together. They work together through communication. And right now, XCM isn't the best at doing this communication purely because there are no response mechanisms. So you're basically shouting things one way, and you have to work around these issues. But once we have responses, we'll now be able to communicate together when we're able to move forward to building this out. That said, it is not a blocker to demonstrate what interoperability looks like. Yes, it can be on chain, but you can move things off chain until things are ready on chain to demonstrate to the end user what interoperability could do. Right? So sorry, it was a long diversion, but back to your question about how it looks like on chain. So the governance, again, validates what's going to happen. We will also be building out a fellowship that's on chain, and that fellowship is meant to be proven and qualified, vetted people that can review. They can review whether or not this team have the credentials or the ability to see if this person or this group of people or this have the ability to execute, or this ability to deliver, right? Additionally, for the Imbue enterprise aspect, for people submitting briefs, we'll have an ability to say, okay, these group of people are qualified to apply. You know, this team want content. Let's say Mangata or InvArch or any of the chain want content, and we're like, we have our tokens. We're going to pay our community to do stuff. Instead of just doing giveaways, we're going to give 10x what we normally give away for someone who will produce us like designs or graphical designs or content or tutorials. One of the biggest pain points we have is education. So educational content that gets paid out by the chains themselves, right? So we vet the people who are producing this documentation. Are they writers? For example, I'm terrible at documentation. So I want this on-chain fellowship to say, hang on, Sam, we've looked at how you write your docs. You're not the person who should be writing this, right? So we want this vetted and qualified people who are able to bring that trust, right? To bring in and grow that fellowship, grow those lists of people that can vet projects and apply, and they'll be decentralized, so anyone can be able to qualify to become in this to come in this fellowship. And finally, that's the last step of what we want to do towards governance by the end of 2023 is build an integrity DAO, right? We sorely lack education content and influencers and developers. Really, we lack the people to tell people, hey, these are risks in this particular situation. You look across our ecosystem, you look at the biggest issues that we faced, right? I would say FTX is one of them, Terra Luna was another, and there were people highlighting these risks. But unfortunately, the current social networks are echo chambers, and the minute someone what feels like criticizes anything you're attached to, they automatically get attacked. You know, you're not going to make it, you're fudding, and all of that. We need a place where people can read an unbiased and vetted um, report saying, there's this issue with this particular project you're looking at. These are the risks, these are the problems. And then this report is independently reviewed. And we invite the projects that the report is about to say, we found these risks. Can you address them? That leads towards a safer Web3 because they end up building it. Essentially, it's a watchdog, a Web3 watchdog. And, it becomes a team of teams, a team of researchers, developers, influencers, and you pay them. And you pay them to say, look, we want you to review these 6 or 7 projects. And they're held accountable to those reviews, and their reviews are independently peer reviewed to ensure they're not corrupted or there's no biased opinion here. But that way, the community themselves can now delegate votes, and that's another thing about Polkadot I really like: delegation of votes, and say, actually, I'm going to give this team to tell me whether this particular milestone or this particular project or this particular group has completed something. So on-chain governance is crucial to what we're doing. We're starting slow, we're starting small, but we have a clear vision of where we want to go, and we have a clear ideal where we want to empower people, but ensure we do it safely and with a focus on accountability.
Thank you for that detailed explanation, Sam. And for Dakota, second question. Recently, a very significant announcements came out on a dual token economy coming to the InvArch network. Could you simplify it more for our audience and explain what this means for the future of Tinkernet?
Absolutely. And I just want to say, again, Sam, I really do appreciate just how thorough, how much thought and detail has gone into the processes behind Imbue. But moving on to the dual token economy. So one of the big things that we were asking ourselves, we were really asking ourselves, Tinkernet long term, 10, 20 years without wasting, we don't want to, we've seen the pattern with some projects, and we want to avoid that in the ecosystem having 2 chains. And so we ask ourselves, this knowing this is block space is a valuable resource that we have access to, and just having this other chain, how can we fuse this together? How can we kind of in a sense optimize or delegate block space based on the optimized needs of what we're doing? And so with that, kind of look back. There's been many ways, many life paths for parachains in the ecosystem. You see, or for teams, I guess you could say. There's a dynamic where there's a Kusama parachain and Polkadot parachain. They have two different tokens. They're totally unrelated. And then you have some where there's two chains, one token. Sometimes you have one chain. What really is just Kilt that did it so far. But you have a chain that is on one network or is on Kusama, and then it migrates over to Polkadot. But again, just one token there. And we had already begun, started things off with having these two separate tokens. And the way that we were viewing it is because we wanted to separate the experimentation and that playground from the secure protection and thoroughness that would come from Polkadot and with InvArch. However, going through things and really just understanding what I don't say like what currently is, but what will be possible with XDM, with between plans from Parity or from plans that Gavin Wood has shared, and then also just cool cool advancements and contributions that Gabe is working on as well with XDM and really unlocking a lot of its potential or helping to unlock a lot of its potential. And with this, we realized that we have an opportunity to do something really cool. So we are able to have, or we will be able to have InvArch, which will focus on the storage of assets, storage of data, primarily focusing on data storage over the network. And governance will, well, here's where things get interesting. So governance over the InvArch network will actually really be governance over both networks. So what we're going to do, and this is part of the fun experimentation, I guess, but what we're going to have is essentially imagine InvArch, that chain, the InvArch parachain, owning the Tinkernet chain. And the community is able to then handle governance over both chains through one chain. So governance over both of those chains, and which the key commodity here is the block space that they provide, the unique functionality of those chains, their specifications, and governance will be controlled over both through one chain. Assets will be stored on one chain, which would be InvArch, having the security of Polkadot really kind of being the key thing there. We want to have institutional grade security over assets. So whether this is content, whether this is even financial assets, whether it's over code, doesn't matter. We want to provide the utmost level of security, and that's what Polkadot provides. However, this is where things get fun. We realize that it's going to be possible to where we can build dApps, and these multi-protocol powered dApps, to where we can have these assets on Polkadot, but we can also have a whole other chain, which is Tinkernet. And this is where a lot of other custom logic can either be coded in through palettes or through the INV engine, can be deployed. And this is where the actual dApp economy would take place, and what this block space is really optimized for versus the block space on InvArch, which is optimized on the storage of those assets. And well, I mean, that's the main things: the storage of the assets and the governance over the network, over both networks and that system. Whereas with Tinkernet, that's where the actual really economy of things will ultimately be taking place. So Tinker, this might sound a little backwards, but it's really in the long term, Tinker will be the ultimate economic medium of the InvArch network. Varch will solely be used, so it's used for staking, but not for OSA staking. It's used, individuals will be able to stake on their tokens in order to provide storage or participate in network governance, and individuals who stake or bond their tokens, they will receive a reward, a smaller proportionate reward in Varch, which will be distributed over at least 50 years. Um, Distributed over the course of 50 years, we change things up to have, instead of inflation, we have a maximum supply of 117 million Varch tokens. Again, so about 45, I think, 45% of that will be distributed over a very long period of time. The ultimate reward here is that by having your VARCH staked or bonded to the network, then individuals will receive Tinker as kind of like a dividend. And the goal here, separate from the optimization of block space, which in one sense is a bit experimental, but very confident in. And nonetheless, I will also note, there's XCM, and we have plans with other chains for them to deploy or for developers to deploy smart contracts on their chains that interact with InvArch in the same sense that we're talking of now. But in this system, Tinker kind of acts like this dividend. We're able to separate, in a sense, like these two layers, to where we have the assets, security, storage providers, and governance, the participants who make the network really operate the way it's supposed to, the way it's needed to. And we have a token economy that's centered around that participation, and it's able to, on top of this network, provide an economy where there's some really powerful, really amazing, powerful dApps that individuals are able to launch, dApps that with our solutions actually help to bring them value, helps them to communicate, to work with other people, to collaborate, to generate like actual income, instead of just moving things around. And that's where that will exist. And a small portion of that economy is through the Tinker token is provided to network participants who make that economy possible as a dividend, allowing those individuals to receive incentive without it's not a circular motion of the VARCH token where they're just getting more token, they're selling it. It doesn't just a dilution of that value. Whereas in this case, there's the VARCH token and the Tinker token is able to actually bring them separated pool of value based on the economy on top of the network. So it might have been, I hope that was probably, I don't know if I did a good job breaking that down simply or not, but I'm really excited for it. It's really, really exciting. It's really powerful. We do have the article that we released on it, and I'll be releasing more details, the whole full, thorough details in an upcoming InvArch paper. But yeah, that is the general rundown. Optimizing block space, doing a little bit of experimenting here with something fun, and separating two economies to actually bring value to individuals who make an economy possible based off of the fruits of said network's labor, so to speak. Yeah.
Can I just add to that? Sorry. That's awesome. That's just fantastic because InvArch is one of the very few chains that are focusing on delivering value for both. You realize it's one product, and the Canary network is giving you more information about how you want to handle things on the Polkadot side. And that's a perfect example of how you can use both together to deliver value. For your holders or to your holders, and that's just awesome, right? And I wish we can do more of that on Kusama to show people it's not a staging net, it's not a test net, it's actually a place where you can learn more about how people want to interact with your chain. And this is a powerful example of that. Thank you, Dakota.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I will be honest. The more excited I am about an idea, I'm also like the more nervous I get when I share it. But I really approached Gabe with it, and basically I love Gabe. He's great. I basically went to Gabe and I was like, look, hear me out. It might sound wild. I just need to know, can we technically do this? And yep. I mean, well, Gabe's confident. And Gabe I trust. But yeah, ran it through him, shared it with a bunch of other people, some advisors, some just people around the ecosystem, and I've gotten good feedback. But yeah, I don't know. I really appreciate that coming from you, just because the main thing I feel like when I've shared it with some people, like with Gabe, the main thing was, is it possible? And that was the validation there. So like, big plus. But with others, I feel like a lot of people, which is good. I get it. It's how humanity ticks. But a lot of people are like, yeah, it's good because money. But I appreciate what you said, because you understand. It's just we're trying to actually bring value, not shuffle it around. So I appreciate you. You're the first person to actually note that. So thank you.
Thank you for that breakdown, Dakota. Really appreciate that. Now, on to the last question of the question series. So, Sam, previously mentioned on Twitter by Kratistos, and I apologize if I pronounced that name wrong, but what do you currently think about projects from UDAO using GitArch to fund projects the Imbue way? Or rather, will it ever be possible for cross-chain powered dApps like GitArch to plug into Imbue protocols and provide decentralized and specialized crowdfunding opportunities to developers?
Of course, of course. It was a great suggestion, right? It was another example of how we can demonstrate interoperability. Now, the apps are able to talk to chains. They're able to be designed in such a way that even if the chains themselves don't have a channel open between them, right? You're able to call extrinsics on different chains. Having a channel open between them just makes it things easier to move around, right? For example, you can say, hey, I'm a chain, I want to call a functionality on another chain. Having that channel open is essential if you want to call transact. But if you design your D app to say, look, we know that having these chains together is difficult. I'm going to act as the orchestrator. I know how this chain works, or how I know how chain A works, and I know how chain B works. So I'm going to orchestrate that, and all the user has to do is press buttons on my app, and then I'll be able to move things around. We can demonstrate that today. So in the example that Christos shared, was a DAO can be like, look, the code. I want the code to go to GitArch, and when it's done, we will validate via Imbue, and for the IP rights, want to push that to InvArch, right? And we can bring in. There'll be so many other projects that want to jump on this, right? What we're working on in the background is talking to all the chains on Kusama and on Polkadot to say, look, how can we demonstrate interoperability? How can we categorically answer the whys? And it comes down to the whys with me. I nag people with whys, right? Because that's really what drives adoption. And we can do that. That was just one example of how we can interoperate together. That's come up with loads and loads more. So then we can go to other ecosystems and say, look at how these projects are working together collaboratively. This is the beauty of Polkadot. And we can go to people outside of Web3, people who are just not interested at all in crypto, and say, using these set of services or these set of functions with a really good UI in front of it to make it more intuitive for you coming from the Web2 world, it gives you opportunities. It gives you services that just don't exist where you are. And that way you answer the why for them.
Thank you, Sam. Really appreciate that. And for the last question to Dakota, I believe it's fair to say that both Imbue and Tinkernet bring forward the intention of establishing and maintaining a community filter for projects, or what you, Dakota, have described when it comes to Tinkernet's community as a social filter. Would having both coexisting be counterproductive or more of an advantage and benefit for the ecosystem?
Oh no, definitely, absolutely, clearly an advantage. So, I mean, like I had mentioned earlier, really the focus of what InvArch provides really is centered around, more than anything, the InvArch network is centered around the ontology of assets. So, like I said, defining these structures, these primitive data structures, the relation between data. So this can be the relation between your content, and this can be the structure of an organization. Um, that's time before we focus on multi-party ownership. So then, how are individuals? Because with a DAO, the whole thing is, it is an organization, but it's also shared ownership. It's shared governance over everything, or in different bodies. So how do we provide multi-party ownership solutions towards that and over the content itself, which is kind of what we're building out now with Saturn. Um, and beyond that, how do we provide services that allow people monetize what it is. Okay, so that our staking protocol on Tinkernet and just Tinkernet is a very fluid. I will say it's very liquid, very fast, autonomous, like streamlining for getting like community-driven funding to kickstart things. But I truly believe that that's what it's good for, is kickstarting. I don't necessarily think, because it's lacking a lot of the scrutiny that's needed, that comes from something like Imbue. something that's able to take it like actual step further. Whereas I imagine OSIF is able to provide people, like, imagine if somebody literally has absolutely nothing and they just need, not to say they couldn't get that on interview, but they just need to get a little bit. They need to get, the first, I don't know, a couple thousand, 10,000, however much, money or funding. And they want to get things going. They want to, get the first bit of supplies, whatever it is, they need to get a computer, or whatever other initiative. Again, these don't necessarily have to be for building. These could just be a community wanting to support Little Timmy's lemonade stand or someone's donation to a cancer hospital. But the point here is that OSIF isn't designed to provide an actual scrutinized, thorough solution, something that Imbue adamantly is what people ultimately should use when it comes to like you said, like connecting with people that you need. That's amazing. I love that. Like that's the trifecta to me. It's Imbue. There is the ability to under milestones. I think it's important. It's important for people to be structured and understand, to plan out what they're going to build, to make sure that they understand that themselves. So it's important to have the milestones, have the community funding, have the scrutiny that comes from that, and also provide the ability for people, because like I said, an idea is just one thing, finances is one thing, but skills, that's the missing link in the triangle, and Imbue also provides that avenue. So in my opinion, OSIF, good to get it going. Imbue, that's where you can go ahead and take it off the ground. And then, of course, you could just use both. That is one thing. I imagine people do that. It's like with, people go around getting money from here and there. But the point is, I definitely see Imbue as a step above OSIF, 100%.
Thank you both so much for going through the main question series. So switching gears to our amazing audience today. For those that have questions for either Sam or Dakota, it is a first come, first served basis. If you are on mobile and it may be your first time, all you need to do is tap on that microphone icon titled request to request to speak, and I'll accept you in so you can ask your question.
Okay, I got a question. Sam, what, apart from, no problem, apart from yours or mine, to assume that I would be one. But what are 3 projects in the ecosystem? Polkadot, Kusama, doesn't matter. What are 3 projects that you are interested in?
Thanks. That's a good question. And I think it's one I always hammer down on when I'm talking to other chains. All the projects that are trying to do something different on Kusama, beyond just being a staging net, I really resonate with, right? So InvArch is one, Oak is another, Mangata is another, Subsocial, Remark. All these folks who are focused, truly focused on, we want to demonstrate to the wild world that Kusama gives you the place where you can try new things and learn, right? More than, hey, we deployed something and now we're going to move directly to Polkadot. No, Kusama is a place where it's really the network of the people. It's where you see projects that people want to do rather than one focused or driven by hype. So those were just examples of projects that are fully focused on Kusama, and that's why I like them. But also ones who have beyond just DeFi, beyond focusing on real world problems. Centrifuge is another one, right? They although they are in Polkadot, but they are also focused on a different mindset of problems. Totem, where they're dealing with accounting. Well, after what we saw with FTX, you realize that accounting is going to get a lot of focus. So on two sides, the projects that are really focused on Kusama, I love, absolutely adore, and I think those are the ones that I find myself resonating closely with, mainly because they are building in the same space as us, but also the ones focused on real world problems and solving the whys, I also resonate with.
I love that. That was great. Great answers. That's like one of the things I always love to hear from other founders is what other projects excite them. I don't hear it too often, but I always love the responses I get. So thank you.
No worries. And for my question, what I want to do is, I think, finding out how realistic it would be to let's fund an idea. Let's fund an idea which then deploys assets on InvArch, and we'll find out a chain that also wants to get involved, and we demonstrate that use case of interoperability and how these chains can work together. Is that possible?
Oh yeah, like so I go about that forever. Like so I coming back to that app that like what got me here in the first place. So coming back to that, like that, it's always on the forefront of my head. And I will be honest, you actually do provide so many solutions in line for that. But I believe will be a super app, a true, truly amazing application that gets built out of Web3, out of Polkadot, out of this ecosystem, um, will be an application. And again, like I said, it's very in line with a lot of the services provided by Imbue. But ultimately, here's what will be able to happen. So someone can have an account with Kilt's DID. They have social KYC, so now they can use decentralized technology to validate their identity, to their assets. It's kind of not like I won't say like a compliant registry process, but it's a very powerful component to that process. They have DID signed, so now individuals will be able to conduct on-chain dealings properly, compliantly with the centralized institutions which they live in. I don't know. I live in the U.S. yet. Identities. You're also able to you can have reputation systems, hopefully maybe using some of the tech that we're building out with the DAO CDK and our protocols, but nonetheless, reputation-based systems. You can enhance this reputation-based system, what you were saying with Imbue. Basically, like you have this on-chain resume system that people are able to build up based off their contributions to projects. The system is project something on Imbue, someone building out there. This could be getting someone's GitHub or GitArch data, and you can use something like Latentry, which deals with identity aggregation. Used to aggregate this data for your reputation, which again all tied to your identity, your DID. Really awesome here. So boom, you have the identity aspect. Now you have your assets, where we get to InvArch. You have your assets, what it is that you're building, where you store them, or if it's the organization. Because with the assets themselves can be DAOs, so like just the governance over it can get, I don't know, imagine like an asset could be a code base, or the asset could be, for example, let's say, I know we don't really like this company, but say Facebook, okay? So Facebook, boom, one point was code, but it's also grew to become a company that is basically just based upon that creation. And it's the same sense, except instead of a company, it's a DAO that we allow people to seamlessly build using these. Now, in these DAOs, like I said, we have the social KYC. We have the DID solution in there. And we also, because of DID sign, can have compliance dealings, inter-DAO, business conductions, business procedures, as well as like when it comes to like licensing or business practices amongst outside parties, all that can be compliant. Very powerful there. Now, with all of this, you understand like there's this possibility here for these systems, but now we need something to launch them. We need something to get them going. And like I said, OSIF, it's fluid, it's fast. For a little kickstarting, and people, I will say, like people can make, like there's money, that people, I don't say money, but like people are able to get APY from the token from staking. However, what I would like a lot more, and I think is better, so understand there's the system with DID and these DAOs and everything. Now, to get things going, individuals are able to launch these DAOs, launch these systems using these tied to their credentials. So who you're dealing with through Imbue. And Imbue is the place where individuals launch these ideas, they get them going. They're launching these ideas under a proper milestone delivery framework that is backed and oversaw by a community, funded by a community, and they're building products that have the ability. I mean, it doesn't have to be a DAO, but it can be if they need to or if they want to. Able to have this system, and then last thing, piece de resistance, is so now with this whole system of upstarting creation and having these decentralized, this decentralized basically economy of systems, you're able to then tie derivative work. So the irony of InvArch and IP is I think some people think that we want to, and we do want to protect, but we want to completely flip the current model on its head, um, because it needs it and we can. And with that, what we really want to do is, so with smart licenses, have it to where derivative work creation. So we want to have incentivized open source. We want to have it to where it's actually more incentivizing to have open source creation for others to then build or innovate on top of, to create a derivative work, to fork, whatever. Make it more rewarding, financially rewarding, because that's what makes people go around, for people to do that, compared to if it were for them to close source or otherwise seek a patent, just paid for legal closed source, that's unattainable by almost everyone. Um, Remove that system with this system, so then we can have this. I'm not using oak. Probably get them in the mix too. Fallow, fat contracts, very important. I usually say, I'll be honest, I love Astros because like Wasm. Wasm is really powerful, and I really love the energy of their team. But the thing is, you can have a mix here where then it doesn't matter if it's a DApp or derivative work or an asset being used to generate value on, via smart contract on Astar or on Moonbeam or on Gear, Composable, wherever. Um, you have this whole linked system underneath, more or less unbeknownst to everyone, that is able to trustlessly facilitate royalties based off of derivative work and income flows, empowering people. And like I said, so you could have a beat. All right, typically have a beat, keep it to myself, and hopefully I can sell it to someone. I know someone who used to make beats, and like legitimately, like there's two of his beats. That one of them is on a Amigos song, and one of them is on a I don't remember the other. I don't remember. I'm not going to try. The point is like legit. He got paid $1,000. I don't know if it's just bad business or what, but it wasn't that great. But that's what he made. Whereas you could have the system where, and other than that, he makes a bunch of beats, and a lot of people try to use them, but nothing. I'm just saying where I come from. Rappers weren't really. No, it's not really a thing. The talent's just not there, unfortunately. But so with that instead, you can have a system someone makes, let's say, the beat, and it's open, available to anyone. You have 1,000 people, make a song, produce a remix to whatever, say produce a song, and almost all of them suck, but 3 of them are great. 3 of them are amazing, and you're getting, I don't know, 10, 15, whatever, predefined, or it could be on a case-by-case basis agreed to, but whatever predefined allocation, royalty percentage you get from the revenue share, and you're getting it from multiple streams now. And then you have this one song that someone made using your beat, and then someone could remix it. And without you ever needing to do anything, you're also going to get, albeit a smaller portion, but royalties from that. And then that song gets put into a movie. That's the theme song of the movie. And you get some royalties, albeit smaller, but some royalties from that. And because it's the theme song of the movie, and the movie was so good they made the video game, well, it's the theme song of the video game, so you're going to get some smaller royalties from that. And the beauty is, all of these deals are able to go and trustless. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to do anything apart from just using the system. And creating, and hopefully, people creating good things with what you made. But I think I'm rambling a little bit. But the point is, I have this really big idea for an economy that is possible with Web3, with all these different protocols, and I think it will be amazing. And yeah, we can do it. Yeah, that's the short answer.
Beautiful. Thank you, Dakota. Looks like we have one member of our audience today with a question. Natty, welcome to the Twitter Space stage. You can go ahead with your question.
Oh, hey guys. Thanks, AJ. Thank you, Dakota and Sam, for interesting discussion. Both are really great projects. So I feel like there's a lot of great synergy between you guys and your project. So my question is, how feasible would be a collaboration or partnership between InvArch and Imbue in the future? Or maybe any other projects you guys maybe want to have partnership? Thank you.
Oh, I mean, actually, very easy. So, like Sam had mentioned earlier, and going back to InvArch, we're in team's a little small team right now. We're a little tight, working on certain things at certain times, but we are going to be. We have InvArch, basically like was ready. Yeah, it is ready. Like we finished our beta, private beta, but we want to enhance it a lot further. I would say in that enhancement, you know, granted everything, have to coordinate the teams, make sure the tech's ready on both sides. But it would be very, very easy, and I think very awesome. I would love to figure out a way in the future, and I know it's possible. Just there's the actual work of getting it there. But to integrate Imbue to where, like we said, someone can have they're developing something and it's being backed and funded using Imbue, and whether there's a directly through just having it to where you could go a different layer deeper and have it to where milestones on Imbue or submissions on GitArch. That'd be another model. Nonetheless, yeah, absolutely. Is possible, would be easy. Sources, but I don't know. I like to think, especially after this, something of the source will definitely come about in the future.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think technically it's feasible. From a UI perspective, it's feasible. The only blocker really is resources, right? Every single team on the Polkadot ecosystem right now is struggling when it comes to they're not growing really because of the bear market, and allocating resources to achieve partnerships is really resource intensive. But I can definitely see it happening, and watch this space, because we're working with a lot more projects and we're trying to expand the partnerships between all the chains, especially the ones on Kusama. You're going to see a lot more of us working closely alongside each other to deliver value, but understanding and explaining categorically and definitively why. Right, you're going to see a lot of us working together answering that why.
And we are past the 1 hour mark. Thank you both, Dakota and Sam, for answering Nadi's question. And with that, we have come to the end of today's Tinker Talk. So, Sam, thank you so much for your awesome answers and insights into Imbue Network. As Dakota had mentioned, we truly do appreciate your well thought answers and presentation of your deep understandings. And it was an absolute delight to have you on today's Tinker Talks episode. Dakota, also, thank you for being with us here today. And I'm sure the immediate InvArch community is truly grateful and appreciative of your presence. Would you both like to give a final send off to the audience?
Yeah. So I just want to say, well, first and foremost, thank you for everyone who came out for this Tinker Talks. As always, I'm always really appreciative of everyone here. Really excited to talk with everyone. It is one of my favorite things to do. But I will also say, just while it's hot, as Sam was mentioning, it's not the easiest time for the ecosystem. There are definitely lessons, and the thing is, I think we can share about Sam and myself is, unfortunately, we're not greedy people. So with that, we're very modest in how we've gone about things, and it's good. It's very, very rewarding for the community. At least, like in our case, with Tinker, it's why we were able to provide such a phenomenal experience to people. With all that, with the crowd loans and the rewards and blah blah blah, all the good stuff that make people happy. But the thing is, yeah, it's kind of tough sometimes. The thing is about the ecosystem is, for some reason, it's not like VCs. It's not like VCs on like clear. It's not like that per se. It's VCs, because there are other VCs out there. And I will say there's a lot of. I'm gonna say a lot of VCs are stupid. I'm just gonna say it. They have a lot of money, and that's really it. So like, I don't mean that in like a sour way. Like, I mean that about like some people that I've talked to in the past, the great people, but they don't understand the tech, and they don't really choose to try to understand the tech. So there's big misunderstandings, but then also with VCs, a lot of that, it's very, and I get it. Like I said, money makes the world go around, but kind of like a vulture mindset, you know. And there are projects, and there's a balance, mind you. There can be a balance, but there's usually a trade-off between making the community happy and making VCs happy. And mind you, there's a balance, but it seems no matter where that balance is, VCs always kind of have an upper hand somewhere. But the thing here is with projects like ours is, mind you, we've taken in VC funding before, but it's a very small amount compared to every other funded team. Like at least three a third or a fourth of the next project. But with all of this, and like I said with Sam too, like we're building out these solutions that I don't know. The VCs aren't the reason I wake up in the morning and want to do these things. It's you. It's the community. It's the people that we want to help. So with all of this, ironically, building things that deliver immense value or have the ability to bring others, the masses, immense value, are sometimes hard to attract value from a centralized few. But with that, I will say a beautiful thing about, and a unique thing about this ecosystem is that because of how it was designed, the community is given the ability, they're given the voice, the strength to actually have financial control, to have the ability to support teams that they agree, if they agree, bring them value and are deserving of those things. I say this, of course, because currently in InvArch we have our treasury proposal for a multi-sig solution, which we are going to be building out for the ecosystem. Even specifically for this, designed it in a way to where any chain. It's going to service every and any chain, the chains directly, but then also any DApp built on those chains, and have the ability to immediately work and integrate with all of our favorite ecosystem wallets. We would love your support, of course. We have a lot of support, and everything is looking really fantastic. I'm actually it's really, really awesome to see all of the support that we've gotten. It really does mean a lot to me. So I want to say thank you, but I also want to say, if you haven't had the chance, you can always go vote through the Nova Wallet app. If you voted in the past and your KSM is still locked up from past voting, you can reuse it, and potentially, depending on your conviction, reuse it without. Let Sam talk about. Sam also has a very awesome discussion that is up on issue of funding and ability for community support here. So I really encourage that everyone also check that out, just because I completely 100% agree with you. And I will even say, while I'll be honest, while I am biased here, but because again, I'm biased. You guys don't know me, but I know I'm a good person. So of course I feel like our team, and I know our team is amazing and we're deserving. But to be honest, from the start, Sam has done this very, very purely. In some ways, I wish I would have. So the thing is, if you believe that we deserve your support, then more than us, I really think Imbue deserves your support as well. So I just wanted to just share that to people.
Wow. Dakota, thank you so much. Highly, highly appreciate it. I think in closing, I, I echo Dakota's thoughts. I think the one of the few things I notice about this ecosystem, people here are here to deliver value and to empower people, right? And that was clearly, I started by saying whys. That answered the why for me. Why Polkadot and why I want to build something. So yeah, absolutely go support the discussions. We need multi-sig solutions. We need we need a clear way of demonstrating how you want to handle your account in different chains. And right now the experience isn't great. Nova, Talisman, and the rest of the wallets have done a great job. But what the InvArch team are building is meant to support every single chain. And it comes down to Metcalfe's law for me personally, which is essentially the more users we get here, the bigger the value of the entire ecosystem. So please, please, please do support them. And thank you all for coming to listen to me ramble.
I will say, I'm as a fellow rambler, I don't think I've had such a great time rambling with someone. So thank you, and thank you for your words too. That was really nice of you. Thank you, and also thank you, AJ, for as always doing a great job. Thank you, my man.
Oh, thank you so much. With all that being said, thank you so much to everyone who tuned in for this fourth episode of Tinker Talks. Thank you once again to Sam from Imbue Network and Dakota from the InvArch Network. I wish all of you a fantastic rest of your week and a great upcoming weekend. And we'll see you on the next episode of Tinker Talks. Bye for now.